I used to manage my anxiety through exercise, which is good. Like, it's a healthy thing to do, and it's a way of releasing it. But it doesn't actually get to the root cause necessarily of the problem. It's just managing it, like it's a sticking plaster. And so now I've learned more about the balance of masculine and feminine energies. And so, if you're more one than the other, you feel out of sorts. So the whole thing about balance and harmony is the energies being aligned. So if you're so with masculine energy, it's very much a doing force, and you're like, it's very, very useful and at certain points and when to use it. So using kickboxing as the analogy of it is very, very important in kickboxing, particularly when you get higher up, is to stay in the feminine energy, which is it's more relaxed, it's more open and more creative, and so softer, relaxed energy. And so and it's also not got it can be quite chaotic as well, but not in the context of kickboxing. So but then you stay there, and you almost get like your peripheral vision gets bigger in a way.
When you say feminine, do you mean a little bit more passive and just waiting for your opponent?
Not passive is not the right word, but it's just more open. Like, it's because it's passive. Feminine energy isn't passive; it's very chaotic. In fact, but it's actually, it's more. It's not cage. Like men's masculine energy is very much a structure for feminine energy in that context. So it's masculine energy being driven and like that kind of thing. And so when you throw a punch, you flick to masculine energy and you throw the punch, but you see the punch with feminine energy, if that makes sense, from a feminine.
I never thought about it that way.
So, but it's important to, as much get your head like that's, when you start kickboxing, you don't think like that. It's only when you go up through the grade, when you start, you go throw a few punches, that kind of thing. But as you get more and more mature as becoming a man, and also, but more mature as a kickboxer, the art side comes, and the spirit. Well, for me anyway, certainly the spirituality side of the art form comes into it. So it becomes very much like playing chess and using the right tool for the job. And so when you don't want to throw lots of punches because you're wasting energy, but so you flick to masculine energy when you need to, and then you come back, and you should remain mostly in the feminine energy because you don't use as much.
So if I understood correctly, and I also want to follow up with a question on that, when you're kind of balanced in the masculine and the feminine, particularly when you're doing kickboxing, do you find that this is where you enter the state of flow, or is it having the awareness of both of those, being already in a flow state?
The first thing you said. So to illustrate that, not from a not kickboxing point of view, last week I think it was, I was ill at home at work, so from work, and I was feeling pretty rotten. But it was a Tuesday, and I kickbox on a Tuesday, and then I know that there's like 2 or 3 weeks if I don't exercise in that time, I call it like the blues start to set in, and then I was like, well, what? And I was contemplating, even though I was physically ill, going kickboxing to manage that thing, and I was like, hang on a minute, that's not sensible to do. And I was like, but now I've kind of learned to sit with the energy a bit more, and I was like, well, there's an anxiety I'm feeling towards this, and now I'd rather that anxiety for me being, I'm not scared of anxiety anymore. I kind of see it as a flag for growth. So if you're feeling an anxious or an overly flow of energy around something, then that is almost, it's not every single time, but it's almost a time for thing of there's something not quite right there, because we should just be flowing in that kind of thing, and there shouldn't be that resistance, but there often is. So anyway, I was feeling ill, and I was like, no, I'm actually not going to go kickboxing. But in order to, so I was like, well, I'll try and go out into nature, because I feel like because feminine energy is often found out in the nature, generally, because feminine energy is not, there's no straight lines really. It's quite chaotic, and so when you're in a city, particularly, the straight lines of buildings and stuff, it's it's like a masculine. So you feel like if you've been in a city too long, you'll feel quite overwhelmed with that. But if you've been in the forest, as an example, for too long, you'll feel perhaps a bit too chaotic. So for me anyway, the balance comes with two. So I live up in Tottenham, and there's the reservoirs that are up there, the wetlands I think they're called. So I went and I was like, it was a sunny day, so I was like, walked through there, and I thought maybe I'll find somewhere I can just sit and meditate. And I found this absolutely beautiful place. I think did I show you a picture of it? Yeah.
You didn't show me, but you told me about it in the
right. Yeah. It's just, it was a pontoon thing where people fish, but it was like the sun was there. It was just like, it was like an Instagram photo of where you should go meditate. I was like, that's it. So I meditated there, and like for about half an hour, and I like a proper zened out, like felt like the energy was flowing. Oh, it was amazing. But so at the end of it, like I felt completely balanced. The anxiety bit of things that I was feeling around, like, it had just gone. And literally wrote a poem then on the bench, on the pontoon. And it was, so for me, the balance, the creative flow, not the creative flow energy comes when for me, I don't know about anyone else, but for me, so it comes when I balance the two. If I'm more masculine or more feminine, I'm not quite balanced. So once I find the balance, then and now I can articulate it, which means I understand it, which means that's like, that's great. Therefore, my body understands it, my head understands it, and so it's like I can actually use that as a tool for not feeling anxious. Because if you're too masculine or too feminine, you can feel anxious in that context.